All right, I guess it's time for you to make some picks, and I have, to me, I think there's three teams here you can look at, and I'm obviously not going to say all three on the chance that one drops to me with my final pick, but
To be
I think
clear, there are three teams right now that I am interested in as well. So
okay.
we might be talking about the same three. I'm hoping that you got a different, maybe one substitute in there somewhere, and I can get two of my three.
All right, so at pick 12, go ahead and give me Penn State. I
Yep, that was one of them.
All right, I have to counter your pick of Ohio State. Ohio State has to go to Happy Valley. I don't love the quarterback situation here at Penn State, but I don't hate it, right? Like they could make the playoff. Penn State's clearly one of these teams to me that I don't think they could win at all. But I could see them making the playoff and making a run. They've come damn close in prior years. That defense is going to be really salty. At times, we saw some teams rattle Justin Fields last year for a quarter, sometimes like 20 minutes. Usually it wasn't the whole game, and part of that was related to him being banged up at the end of the year. But the athleticism on this Penn State defense really does it for me, man. They are so athletic. I mean, I look at it. Brandon Smith is now playing for them. You have Micah Parsons. The difference makers they have with the big, fast athletes. I First of all, that can clearly help them beat Ohio State, but I also think that will help them avoid slip ups within the conference. I just don't think there's enough offenses in that league who can put up enough points on them. We'll see what Michigan looks like. I'm not the biggest fan of Michigan's quarterback situation, so I guess we'll see on that. So go ahead and give me Penn State there at 12, and then I give me the Irish. I They do have to play Clemson, which is clearly the potential stumbling block here. But Clemson is a team that I have. And if this Irish team if they take down Clemson, this is almost my Clemson insurance. I really don't want Clemson insurance from within the ACC because I think if any team beats them, like the ACC is not going to have a non-Clemson playoff representative. I don't think. The Irish are sort of my Clemson loss insurance. Clemson has to go to Notre Dame later in the year. I think the offense is going to be dynamite. I like Hamilton on defense. And the other thing is, I think if they play a really close game against Clemson, there's enough names on this schedule to where perhaps an 11-1 Notre Dame team could still get into the playoff. I don't think it's super likely, but I mean, we're down here at pick 13, so you have to kind of think about possibilities. Stanford could bounce back some this year. We'll see. That could be a name win. They get Wisconsin in early October at Lambeau Field, so that'll be a game people really remember. Pitt should be a bowl team. Louisville should, again, probably be a bowl team, and they get that one at home, so that'll be a nationally broadcast game on NBC. And then they finish in the Coliseum against USC. So go ahead, give me the Irish here. First is Clemson insurance, and then second, I mean, maybe they're able to do it without.
Yeah, one of the things that scared me away from Clemson or from Notre Dame a little bit was I was doing Big Ten on 24/7 Sports. You can find right now my like one prediction for every Big Ten team. And as I was looking at Wisconsin's schedule, I was actually surprised to see they got Notre Dame. So this Notre Dame schedule, yes, it's got USC, which it always has, and it has Clemson, which is going to be a big one. And then I saw Wisconsin sneak up on there. And then I just sort of got a little scared of the schedule. Now, I will say, as I really sort of look at this a second time, look, they should beat Navy. They'll beat Arkansas. They'll beat Western Michigan. They'll beat Wake Forest. I mean, I guess Wake Forest could conceivably win, but I think Notre Dame's at a point where they don't have to sweat that kind of a game. I don't believe in Stanford yet. Pitt, like the rest of the schedule is a very ACC schedule. And so I guess Notre Dame really is in a lot of ways probably a 3-game schedule. So maybe I didn't give Notre Dame enough credit on my initial glance. I'm not the most trusting of Ian Book. There's some quarterbacks I feel more comfortable with. So this was not one of my 3.
This was not one of your 3. Okay.
No. Penn State certainly was, and I think. Look, here's my. so here we are in April, right? And we're predicting college football playoffs, and in this role, we go about like we start predicting national champions and playoff contenders in April, and then we have to either change our pick or double down over the next 5 months. And so sometimes you get boxed into corners, sometimes you make several different predictions. So I think I had a few different national title predictions along the way last year, but for our Facebook show on 24/7 Sports, we had a preseason show where we sort of used this like process of elimination method of finding a national title contender. And we wanted to do it. We weren't trying to find someone off the beaten path, but we wanted to like be honest about the approach. And as we use sort of the important factors, critical factors in crowning a national title, we whittled the list down to LSU. We landed on LSU. And so I'm not saying I picked LSU as my official pick last year, but that process actually led us to LSU, which we kind of were like laughing at the time, and then but sort of the more we thought about it, it made sense. LSU goes and wins a national title. And that process is really about four things. It was about, do you have a quarterback? Because that disqualifies you if you don't. Do you have the prerequisite talent? Because that disqualifies you if you don't. Do you have the schedule? Because that can, I think, qualify you. I don't think it's a barrier of entry, but it can boost someone into contention that might not otherwise be by a favorable schedule. And then do you have a coaching that is going to limit you from that? So as I look at Penn State, this is a long way getting to Penn State. As I look at Penn State, I'm just worried about the quarterback, and you are too. It sounds like.
Yeah.
But like that's my only fear of making a Penn State prediction. They have a good quarterback who is capable of getting them in Big Ten championship contention. He would be out of place in the college football playoffs, I think, which is sort of my fear in predicting them getting there. And
there's a bit
frankly,
of like
same thing with Notre Dame in a way. I mean, we've seen Ian Book in a playoff setting. It's not all on him, but he did look a little Jake Browning-ish from the Washington appearance. It'd be nice to be able to hang your hat on a quarterback that you have full confidence can handle that setting and that road to get there.
And our last four picks clearly have one of those things to ding them at least, right? With Penn State, like Penn State reminds me a little bit of like 2018 Clemson. Nasty front seven. Nobody really thought Kelly Bryant was going to be able to win a national title, but they were able to make it. I think if we're picking teams to win the national title, which, hey, we might do at some point,
right.
Like maybe Penn State's a little bit lower because of the quarterback. Do you think Anthony Brown can win a national title? To me, probably not. Right. USC has the Clay Helton issue, which is is your coaching on game day and program management a little bit sketchy so far? Survey says yes. And then Irish, I agree. I think Notre Dame has some quarterback issues for sure there. Okay, so I'm interested to see. Clearly, Penn State was one of your teams, but you're about to hit me with the other two to finish off your draft, aren't you?
Yeah, and look, I think that both of these, in fact, both of these teams that I'm about to pick here actually align pretty well with that criteria. So I'll go with at 14, Texas A&M, and then at 15, I'm going to go Minnesota.
Ooh.
So if you look at, let's start with Minnesota first. All right. So Minnesota returns their quarterback. And I think that Tanner Morgan is really good. Is Tanner Morgan a playoff quarterback? He might be. I don't think you can say with certainty that he's not. But he's certainly, he's probably the second best quarterback in the Big Ten heading into the year. So I think you've got that. You have, do they have do they have the NFL talent roster? Probably you would say no at this point, but look, they're going to have one of the best wide receivers in the conference. They're going to have one of the bigger offensive lines in the conference. They've got a defensive unit that has got like really has the right body types and athletes. So I actually think that this team is more talented probably than it gets credit for. They don't recruit at the level that you sort of need to be a consistent national title contender. But I do think that the way PJ Fleck recruits gives them a chance, because they recruit high upside guys. They don't recruit high floor guys. They recruit high upside guys. It's a little bit like the Baylor method too. I mean, all the guys you see going to Minnesota, they're often multi-sport guys. They're often guys that play multiple positions. They're often guys that are just sort of untapped. And so I think the talent is closer than maybe Minnesota gets credit for. Coaching, I don't know. I do think it hurts that they lost Kirk Karacha again to Penn State. Mike Sanford comes in. We'll see what he can do in year one. But, that's a question mark, the offensive coordinator spot, as they try to incorporate and install a new offense. PJ Fleck is certainly an elite coach. Does he cross that, get over that hump to the national, college ball playoffs? I think he's capable of it. So I certainly don't think he disqualifies them. And then here's what's really compelling is if you look at their schedule. First of all, they miss Penn State and Ohio State out of the East. They've got Iowa at home. They've got Wisconsin on the road, yes, but Wisconsin, that's going to be the week after that Notre Dame game at Lambeau. So I think that's a pretty good – if you're going to have to go on the road to Madison, that's not a bad place to get it. So then they got Michigan at home, and their other road games are Maryland, Illinois, Michigan State, and Nebraska. That is a very manageable schedule. So, again, when you hit the bullet points of what are the traits or the characteristics that give you a chance to get in the playoffs, I think actually Minnesota has a lot of them. So I think that's one to watch. Texas A&M, a lot of similarities there. Kellen Mond, I mean, I don't know what the hell we're dealing with Kellen Mond. He's got a first-round arm. He's got a first-round body. Got first-round athleticism. But sometimes he looks like a frat kid quarterback out there just winging it. And sometimes he looks like a first-rounder. And so can he finally take that leap to consistency under Jimbo Fisher? I think, again, when you're talking about ceiling versus floor, he definitely has the ceiling to be a college ball playoff quarterback. So I think that's something that is, if I'm getting them here at 15 or 14, I'll take that. Secondly, this is a talented roster. I think it wasn't ready maybe last year. Certainly wasn't ready 2 years ago. And it's still probably a year away heading into this year. But they returned 19 starters. There's going to be some guys that were backups last year that beat out starters from the previous year. There's going to be a really talented freshman class coming in that can help them. And then I got to pull up this Texas A&M schedule real quick. But the schedule is very favorable. I mean, last year it was just a ridiculous schedule where they really never had a fighting chance. But this year, with a better team, better roster, more experience, they've got Abilene Christian, North Texas, and Colorado in the non-conference, along with.
I've got it memorized now. I've written 3 or 4 long forms about this.
Yeah, we'll have at it. Yeah, I mean, this is a beautiful, beautiful setup.
It really is. So their teams from the East this year, I believe, are South Carolina and Vandy, right? Which is, I mean, you can't get an easier draw than that from the East. They do have to go to Bama. So this is kind of Bama insurance for you, right?
Yep.
You took Bama. That's a game that Bama could lose in theory. There's very few on that tied schedule. I put A&M in my coaches in pivotal years piece in one of my first weeks at 24/7, and their fans were pissed about it. And I was like, look, this is not a hot seat piece.
Right.
This is you got to cash in here. This is your 3 years of recruiting. This is the easiest schedule you have had in quite a while, and probably will have in quite a while. There's nobody who wants this season to be played more than A&M. Right, they don't want to lose the schedule. They've got to cash this in, and they have the real schedule to do so. I think they're at Auburn, which is probably, if you had to put a line on it, kind of coin flippy. I don't think either team would be a huge favorite there. LSU comes to town. Their non-conference is like a cakewalk. This was my other team of my three. When I said I had three with Penn State, Notre Dame, and the other one was A&M. With Minnesota, I actually don't hate that. Like I wasn't really thinking ahead to my 16th pick quite yet. I was hoping A&M would drop, but that's probably pretty foolish. And like with Minnesota, if they have to throw more, will Tanner Morgan be able to do it? They're another one of these teams that ran the ball so much last year that when they did throw it, they almost always had favorable numbers and favorable matchups. You know, we talked about they don't really recruit at that national title level, and that's true. But like a guy like Rashad Bateman, Florida State and Georgia wanted him pretty badly, and he was a win for Minnesota of the early signing period because PJ Fleck gets in there and he works his magic on these kids, and it's like they don't flip when the other big schools come calling. In fact, I kind of want to write about that later this summer when I get a chance to. Minnesota does a great job of catching or of keeping some of those kids who they're on early, and they don't end up flipping to other schools, whereas some schools will kind of have a kid committed for 8 months and then all of a sudden he flips away. And that's tough. So last pick of the draft here, pick 16. And I can just kind of, I mean, you don't have any more picks, so I can just tell you who the 4 teams left on my board are. All right.
You got 4 more guys, teams that you're messing around with.
Yeah.
I'm
really
almost cast here at this point.
I really didn't need to rank this far, I realized, because there's only 16 rounds, so you probably shouldn't go ranking 20 teams. So I've got Auburn, I've got Michigan, I've got Wisconsin, and I've got Washington. And other than that, do you have anybody on your list that I didn't list there?
I have one team that you didn't list.
I'm gonna feel pretty stupid for it. All right, probably.
No, you're not gonna feel stupid. It's not obvious.
Got it.
I'm just curious if you care to take a guess.
Is it a G5 team? Is it Boise?
No, it's not G5.
Okay. Miami with Derek King.
No, but it is ACC.
You're not going Carolina, are you?
I'm not going Carolina. They made my board though.
Okay.
Carolina made my board. Probably a year early there. Maybe Carolina is a more defensible pick in 2021. But look, we're talking 16th pick at this point. So, they were an option that I was willing to entertain.
I don't hate that. I'm going to go ahead and give me Wisconsin.
Okay, sell me on this. This is interesting.
Yeah, I really kind of feel like all these 4 teams are like, if you had to put odds on these, nobody is less than like 15-1. I wouldn't think, right? I mean, of making the playoff. Wisconsin has a manageable schedule with the exception of playing Notre Dame, but they have that Notre Dame game that can kind of get them up there. I don't really like. I think Wisconsin has a better chance of beating Ohio State if they get there on a neutral site than Michigan does going on the road to an Ohio State team that is just absolutely like Ryan Day has Michigan's defense's number. I mean, they put up 50 like every time they play, and so even if Michigan improves by like 2 touchdowns, Ohio State's still scoring 35 on them in Columbus. With Washington, I thought about it, but the schedule's not that friendly. I don't know if their non-conference has enough potentially like skins that you could rack up. Auburn, I think, is probably the number 4 team in the West, and I did consider Auburn here just to try and have what I think would be 4 of the top 6 teams in the SEC with you having Bama and A&M. It was sort of like process elimination, and if Wisconsin can get there, they played Ohio State tough for about 40 minutes last year. Like I thought Ohio State would just come out after halftime and just beat them up, and Wisconsin actually had something for them in that first drive or 2 out of the half, and then Ohio State kind of said, "Yeah, guess what? All right." But who knows? What if Justin Fields gets banged up against Michigan and they have to go play and Wisconsin beats them and they're, I don't know, 12-1 or something like that? It's also somewhat of Notre Dame insurance for me. And I do think that with these last couple picks, I didn't want to mention this to kind of give away my strategy, but if we end up with 2-2, you do kind of have to think about New Year's Six Bowl possibilities. Wisconsin could be an Orange Bowl team. So could Notre Dame. Penn State, I could easily see going 11-1 losing to Ohio State, and because Ohio State makes the playoff, maybe they're the Rose Bowl team. I don't know. I'm just trying to think about maybe like who has the best chance of a New Year's Six. I really don't see Auburn as a New Year's Six team.
So I would have gone with Wisconsin there as well.
Okay.
So I was asking you to explain, not because I wasn't sold on it, but just because I wanted to hear your reasoning. Because Wisconsin is like, they're a curious team to me because on first glance, okay, Jonathan Taylor is gone. Quintez Cephas is gone. They're backfilling some on the offensive line. Like, it feels like if this is a team that has to lean on Jack Cohn to generate their offense, that scares me a little bit. And Jack Cohn is a guy I like, but I like him in that Wisconsin role of a game manager to complement the run game. And is the run game going to be as dominant? Maybe I'm underselling it. Maybe I'm underestimating it. What has me, I think, more confident in Wisconsin is the defense. And in some ways, the offense and perhaps the limitations that their offense might run up against might be even like a better sell on the idea that Wisconsin is going to intentionally keep all these games short, intentionally play their style of football, intentionally lean on their defense, which brings back some really good players. And this is just one of those Wisconsin teams that you don't know how they win. You don't know like where their points are coming from, but all of a sudden you look up and they're 11-1 or 10-2, and they're playing in the Big Ten championship game. And so obviously, if you're 10-2 and playing in the Big Ten championship game, then you got a shot at the playoffs. So that would have been where I would have gone as well.
All right, let's recap this then. So Barton ended up with Alabama, Ohio State, Texas, Okie State, Oregon, USC, A&M, and Minnesota. And again, in order here, I got Clemson, Oklahoma, Georgia, Florida, LSU, Penn State, Notre Dame, and Wisconsin.
All right. So as I look at this, if there was a round robin or some sort of a jumble the players up and we'll pick 8 teams to play your 8 teams, and your collection of teams and talent is better than mine. I think you have more blue bloods. I think you have probably teams that would win against my team in some postseason bowl challenge. But I think my strategy was geared more towards finding those conference champions. So it'll be interesting. I don't know how confident I am. I don't know if I'm confident or not. But
if Alabama runs it,
strategy.
If Alabama gets it for you, then I really like your odds. Like if Alabama can be as much of a lock for you as Clemson is for me, then I think you'll take it.
Right.
If Bama doesn't take it home for you, then you're really relying on Oklahoma faltering or the committee putting a Pac-12 team in.
Or Jimbo getting his groove back.
Right, exactly. And then Jimbo would have to beat Georgia as well, probably in the SEC title game. Yeah. This was fun, man. I think 16 was the right number of teams to pick.
It was the perfect number. We would have stayed. We're starting scratching the barrel after that. Look, Auburn, Michigan, Washington, like you mentioned, those are all good teams. North Carolina, like I mentioned, that's a hard sell that those teams in this year, given what is coming back. Auburn just lost all those defensive linemen. Michigan's got a quarterback competition. Maybe Washington, this is the year, but they got to find a new quarterback too. Hard sell for those teams, I think. I think we got the right number.
All right, let us know in the iTunes reviews once you give us those 5 stars just how stupid we were, or like let us know what team you think's going to win this, Team Barton or Team Bud. Obviously we have a lot of time to kill here before the season kicks off, but we do appreciate your 5-star ratings on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to this show. It's available now, I think, on all the major platforms. I really enjoy doing it. We might actually be back with a little special bonus episode, maybe early next week, maybe over the weekend. So just watch your feeds out there. And Barton, good luck to you.
Good luck to you, bud. Holla.
All right.